Wisdom on you.
Okay, so
All right, go for it.
who likes business?
Yes.
No. The answer is supposed to be no. I'm going to show you why you're supposed to like it. All right, but that's for later. So my name is Ariel, and I'm going to be talking about the one thing no one else talked about during this idea made. This is not my first one. I think it's my second one, and I always talk about business. So if you like business, that's good. If you don't, I'm going to teach you something new. So about me, my name is Ariel, as I said, and I'll probably repeat this 6 more times because I keep forgetting. I started by building websites way back in the day. I love websites, I love the web, both the server side and the client side. And then at some point, the App Store opened up, and it just looked like this magical place. And there was a gold rush, and everyone was doing it, so I decided, let's do it. Me and my brother started making games. He was making games, and I was marketing all the games. And it was actually a lot of fun. I got to learn a lot of new things. Now, I developed, but I also went to school for marketing, so I'm somewhere in the middle, and I really liked both. And that's mostly what I'm going to be talking about. So now what I do is something we realized after about a year of doing games is that we didn't really have any tools. No good tools to track what's going on with the App Store. And when you need to run a business, you need to have metrics. So if any of you remember iTunes Connect back in 2008, 2009, all you would get is a TSV file. So it's not even a CSV, it's a tab-separated file. If you were making money, it was in the local currency, so Japanese yen to start the day. And I figured to myself, we can't use this. If we really want to build a business around apps, we need to have real information. So I built a little tool called App Figures. And it was running on my machine for a couple months. It was just this little tool. You would take iTunes Connect reports, drop them on a form that was built on Windows. And sorry, I didn't know any better. And it would just graph it, so we can see trends, and we can see if we're doing better or we're doing worse, and we can see how much money we made yesterday or over the last 7 days or at all. And for us, that was amazing because it allows us to see that we actually couldn't go indie. We had to continue and do consulting work. Otherwise, we'd have no money to pay rent. So a few months in, I was talking to a few friends, and they all said, wow, we'd love to have this tool. We really want this. And I said to myself, if they want it, I'm sure a bunch of other people want it. So let me turn it into a web service and put it online. And then we created App Figures. Now, how many of you know of App Figures, heard of App Figures? Not through me. Hey. Thank you. So with App Figures, what we do, it's a platform that tracks everything that's coming from the App Store. So if you know Flurry or Google Analytics or Mixpanel, they track data coming from the app. We track data coming from the App Store. So it's business intelligence, really. And we bring together sales and downloads and revenue, but also reviews and ranks and when you're featured. And very soon, also usage data from Google Analytics and iTunes Analytics. And then we take everything and we make it super simple because I love data myself, but I hate wasting time just sifting through data. I don't think that's something developers should do. Unless you're a data scientist, that's for someone else to do. It's only up to you to use that data to make better decisions so you can make more money. So we made App Figures. Simplicity, awesome stuff. We're 100% private, and no one else is doing this. So if you link your iTunes Connect or Google Play or any of those accounts, we're never going to sell your data. We're not going to share it. We're not going to do any of that. And the reason is because we charge money. Hey, yeah, I know, 2015, and we're a tech startup, and we're charging money. That's unbelievable, right, for a business tool. But we charge $4.99 per month, $5. I did the math. You have to make at least 16 cents a day, well, 16.6 cents a day to be able to afford us. I call that very affordable. I don't know. That's up to you, though. And that's our app that we launched a few months ago. So we're on the web, and now we're also on the phone. And if any of you have the app, you know that it's kind of nice. I'll leave it at that. So enough about me, and enough about talking about stuff. Let's talk about, this is moving. Is this new? Is this creeping me out?
It's interesting business too.
Hello. So let's talk about business. Now, business can mean a lot of things. I don't want you to think this talk is going to be about how to do nothing and make more money. I don't know how to get rich quick. I wish I did, but I don't. I'm going to talk to you more about how to build a business around your app so you have the potential of making money. And if you do everything right, hopefully you'll be rich, not quick. So when me and my brother started developing apps for the iPhone, we had these 4 steps in mind that will get us to be super successful. 1, Build an app. You've all done that, or mostly. We're planning on doing that. 2, put it on the App Store. So the App Store is this magical place, right? Put stuff on the App Store, and boom, magic. 3, a whole bunch of question marks, and we'll get to those in a little bit. Then 4, profit. How many of you thought this was the way to success? Okay, a few. How many of you know that question marks are a pretty big deal? All right. That's what I figured. It took me a while to figure this out. Because the reality is, if you build it, they won't come. Now, it's not actually a sad thing. This is reality in all of business, outside the App Store, where people sell real stuff. People make stuff and sell it. Unless you tell people that it exists, they're not going to know. And there's so many apps out there today, and so many developers competing for attention, that the App Store is no longer this magical place. Now it's just another delivery channel, and you have to look at it that way. So if you put something on the App Store, it's not going to succeed on its own. And this is something that actually happened to my younger brother. So I have 2 brothers, one of which I work with. The other is going to college. And he decided that everyone is making apps. He should make a game. His 2 brothers did it, so he should also follow the train. So he made a word game that I wanted to show, but I ended up not. Because he really hates it at this point, and he would hate me for doing that. And what he thought, he would make a free game. It's a word matching game. So you get some letters and they're scrambled, and you're supposed to turn them into a real word. And it would be completely free, but with in-app purchases. So you can buy some power-ups. And I mean, that's almost the formula for success in the App Store these days. So you put it in the App Store, and he expected a massive amount of downloads, just all the downloads. And then he imagined if he gets a few downloads, a few thousand downloads, he would get a few dollars. And this is how he's going to pay his tuition. That didn't happen. So he had to make some more apps. But what happened is he didn't get any downloads, and because he didn't get any downloads, he didn't make any money. So he came to me and he said, why doesn't this work? You know how this works. Why doesn't it work? And then I started telling him basically what I'm going to be telling you today in a few more words. So we'll start with this myth. There's this myth today that there's no money in apps for indies. Now, it seems kind of true, right? Any indie in the room? I'm looking at you over there. I think it's not true. I think it's not true at all. And I have numbers to back it up, which I'm not going to show you. But I'm going to show you something else. So a few months ago, how many of you know Brent Simmons? He made Vesper with Hugh Branch, and some of you. He's a Mac developer. He's been around for a long time. He's seen a lot of success in the App Store. So when I saw this blog post from him, and this is just a little piece of it, I was pretty confused. Why would someone with so much success write about the platform that he loves, that indies have no fighting chance? And as much as he loves it, he sees no monetary success in the App Store. So the first thing I did was write a long blog post that explains why all of this is wrong. And let's look at the reality before we even jump into that. So the reality is the gold rush is over. You put something on the App Store, there's a lot of competition. There are other developers who are competing for attention from users. There's a lot of users, but they're still competing for them. And search and discovery, there's so many problems that I can go over, but I'd rather not. So that's a problem. Problem number 1. The App Store is saturated. But there's so many mobile devices. There's a ton, many tons. And China being a part of it is actually helping a lot. On the iPhone side, I'm not even talking about Android, because Android is a mess. And yeah. And there are many billions of dollars being paid to Apple developers by Apple. And that's some of it is money you can take if you build the right app. So what is the problem? Where is this gap between the myth and the reality? Where's the problem between making money and just making apps? And what I see developers that are making apps. They're not creating businesses. And an app is just one part of a successful business. So if to be successful you need a business and you're just making an app, you're missing out on a whole chunk. And the problem is the mindset. And Blinky up top is there for a reason. If you take anything from this talk, it is this slide. Because I think this is a pivotal moment. And I was talking to a few developers here. Kirby is one of them who left, and a few others. And they told me that for them to understand this took many, many years. And it required changing everything they thought, everything they knew again. So the problem is the mindset. As developers, we don't think about building, we don't think about revenue. We think that making money is this dirty word that no one should be thinking about. Money will just come if I build the best app, right? The best app is going to be super efficient. It's going to be super fast. It's going to be great. It's going to look the best. That's cool. And I think you need to do that at this point. Otherwise, you won't be able to compete. But you need more. You need to build it in a way that the market, the audience that you have for the app, is actually going to pay you for it. Now, there are many ways to get paid, and we'll go through that in a couple of seconds. But the real takeaway for this is marketing should not be an afterthought. And marketing is not advertising. There is more to marketing than just placing banner ads all over the place. So if you take anything from this is that you have to build revenue into the way you design your app. And the design itself needs to be informed by it. It can't happen at the end, because if it happens at the end, it's too far, it's too late, and it probably won't work. It may, but it probably won't work. So what's the solution? You got to think like a marketer. You have to not think like a developer, and you got to think about the business side of things. And I'm going to give you a very simple framework to thinking about how to market your app. But before that, I know when I said marketers, a lot of you had this image in your mind. I don't think he's a marketer. I think he's a car salesman. I found that on Google. But marketing doesn't have to be this. And you don't have to do it this way. And I think that's another kind of big point that I want to make. When you think about marketing and you think about a guy who's selling, a guy who's giving you something you don't need, that has nothing to do with marketing. Marketing is taking your app, taking your business, and thinking about it in very specific ways that fit an industry, that fit a group, that fit a niche. And so it has nothing to do with this. Now, there are some who will approach it this way. Aggressive, sleazy, kind of disgusting. But it doesn't have to be you. I do marketing. Hopefully I don't look like that, or don't sound like that. And I know many other developers that take what they know, what they bring from the development world, from the very disciplined mindset, and bring that into marketing. So the framework that I use when it comes to marketing is the 5 Ps of marketing. Does anyone heard of the 5 Ps? Use the 5 Ps before? At least one.
I have a degree in marketing too.
Ah, okay. So we're going to have a conversation, like 2 slides. So there are many variations of this. There are 4 Ps of marketing. There are 5. Some people use different Ps for the 5th. And then there's a 7 Ps of marketing strategy. I think this is the best that makes more sense. And I kind of shuffled it a little bit because I want to talk about promotion last. But let's go over them quickly. So product is the first one. Obviously your app. Price, very important. Place doesn't really work for apps because it's more about physical space, but I retrofitted it to work with something else, so we're fine. And then people, and this really freaks me out. Why is this camera moving, John? Do you know?
Been doing it for 2 days. I can't help you.
I feel like I should be moving this way. Anyway, and then promotion, which I'm pretty sure marketing is a lot to most of you. So we'll go through product. Product is the one thing I'm not going to be talking to you about because you've heard from so many other people today and yesterday about making great products, making great apps. And a great app is a requirement, the way I see it. Now, if you look at the App Store, there's some really shitty apps, excuse my French, that make it to the top. Those are anomalies. Don't worry about them. They're not sustainable. If you make a great app and you follow all these, then you have a much better chance at actually making it. So hopefully you took notes and you learned about accessibility and everything else, and error handling, very important. But the one thing that I can add, and I'll touch on this more, is build around need, not want. So think about maybe the 10 apps or the 5 apps that you use on a daily basis, whether it's an app for a service or just an app, a standalone app you use. Do you use it because you need it or because you want to use it? Mostly because you need it. Maybe 4 out of 5 or even 9 out of 10, I would venture to guess. Now, when you compete with other apps, you want to be a better app, but at the end of the day, your users will come to you because they need you, because they need to be using what you have, and you have the best solution. And you have to design around that. So I know sometimes, as a developer, I really want to make something. And I've made a lot of things that no one really needed, but I wanted. And those were never successful. And there's a very easy pattern to detect. If no one needs it, no one's going to get it. No one has time. No one has just money lying around to get what they want when they need other things that are very important to their business, to their life, even for entertainment. So build around need, not want. That's all I'm going to say about apps. So price, the one I like a lot. One price doesn't fit all. And you think, oh, of course, that makes a lot of sense. But you know what? It really doesn't, because there's a race to the bottom that's been going on forever, where if you're making an app, it's got to be 99 cents. And if you're making a game, it's got to be freemium with in-app purchases. And if you're making anything else, just don't. Now, it might sound good, but it really doesn't, because you have to think about these two things. So your own sustainability. Can you sustain this app, making it, promoting it, and also maintaining it later on, supporting it at 99 cents? Maybe. Maybe not. Can your audience afford 99 cents? Does it make any sense for them to pay 99 cents for your app? Maybe. So you have a few business models that I find interesting on the App Store. You have the paid app model, which is actually working for a lot of people that I know. I know some of the developers behind top apps who are charging $2.99 and $3.99 for their apps, and they're doing admirably. And that's the last point, actually, in here, how they got to that. I know developers who are doing advertising as monetization, and I know developers who are doing free with in-app purchases. And then I know developers who are doing some sort of a hybrid, so paid with in-app purchases or paid with advertising. And at the end of the day, pricing is the kind of thing that can only fit your app. Now, you might be able to generalize about some games. You may be able to generalize about some utility apps. And of course, that's something you will want to do. But at the end of the day, it's what fits your audience, their pocket, and their needs. Because again, it's need, not want. So if they really need something, you might be able to charge them $9.99 for the app. If they don't, even for free, they won't take it. And the example is my brother's game. There's so many other award games out there. No one really needed his game. And that's why they didn't take it when it was completely free. So think about your audience. Think about how much money you need to run this. And don't be afraid to experiment. And every idea, I have this as some sort in one of my slides. Measure once, cut twice. It's the other way. It's supposed to be, as it's supposed to be. But what this means is don't be afraid to experiment. And I've been doing pricing for my own businesses for the last probably 10 years. And it was only about 2.5 years ago that I actually experimented with price for the first time ever in my life, for real. Actually, no, a little bit more. But I was scared. I was really, really scared that if my app is 99 cents and I'm going to go and increase the price to $4.99, no one will buy it. And that's it. And that is actually something that happened. So we had a game called Fly Loop on the App Store. And it was a 99-cent game. It got featured a bunch of times. So it had some revenue. It was doing well. And one day I said, let's give it a try. What's the worst that can happen? And the first thing that jumped into my mind was, no one will buy it. We'll lose the little money that we're making right now. It's never gonna pick up again. So I thought about it for a while. I thought about it for probably a month or so. And I was talking to a bunch of people, and they said, well, you never know. On the App Store, people are gonna penalize you. They're gonna leave nasty reviews. And I really didn't want that. That freaked me out. But the revenue eventually got to the point where I didn't care anymore. And when you don't care, you tend to do interesting things. So I increased the price of the app from 99 cents to $4.99. Huge increase. And I was talking to my brother who actually developed the app. And he said it's not worth $5. No way. There are much better games out there that are 99 cents. And you know what happened? We made 500% more money. It was that easy. Now, of course, it didn't last, but we also didn't really do anything to support it. We didn't push out any new updates. We didn't send out any emails to our existing email list that didn't exist, which I will cover in a second. And we didn't do anything to sustain that growth. But had we done anything with that? Because at that point, we already had app. But had we done anything, we could have sustained that additional revenue without really doing anything. So when most developers go to 99 cents because their friends are doing it, because they think it's going to be easier to market the app, that's a mistake. And that's a mistake that costs you a lot of money. So users love it. You shouldn't really think about it that way. Now, it might be that your app is not really tailored for $4.99, and that will be a terrible experiment. But that's just that. It's an experiment. You catch it in time, you track it with app reviews. obviously. And you will see what's going on. So if your trend is terrible, you can stop and start over. And you can run similar experiments, whether you have in-app purchases, whether it's an ad network that you're working with. All of these are easy to experiment with. And the cycle for experimentation is a couple weeks. So 2-3 weeks for each experiment, and you have a ton of data. And it's not a ton of data that you need Excel to make sense out of, or you need R, or one of those really complicated things. It's just a chart. Either money is going up, or money is going down. It's really up to you. At that point, to either stick with it or try something else. But I was very scared of trying, and once I started, revenue just continued to go up. And now I do it with app figures, I do it with a lot of other things, and that's one of my biggest suggestions when it comes to pricing. Give it a shot. Next is place. So in the real world, place refers to the place where you sell your stuff. If you had any sort of tangible item, you want to make sure that it's sitting in the right place, in front of the right audience. The takeaway from me is here that it's about the audience. Where do they see you? And now, they see you on the App Store, right? But they see you more than just on the App Store. The App Store is one place where they can find your app. But I doubt that most people who go into the App Store, who are looking for apps, go directly to the App Store. They usually start with a Google search. Little fun fact. So if they search for your app, are they going to find it? And what is it going to look like? Do you have a landing page? You have a beautiful landing page. Or is this just something that some guy you know drafted? Or is it a WordPress template? Think about that and try to put that into perspective. Try to walk through what a user would walk through. Now, who's the app built for to begin with? Do you know? Did you build it because you wanted to build it, or did you build it because the audience needs it? And this is, again, where we go back to the need versus want. Now, do they know? But I'm not saying do they know about your app. I'm saying do they know that they need your app? Now, obviously, you see the consistent theme here. Need versus want, need versus want, need versus want. And if you analyze, most of the apps that are not successful on the App Store, it's because they're not needed. It's not because they're not good. It's not because they haven't done something right or wrong. It's because there's no need for them. There's no demand. No demand, yes supply. Doesn't look very good if you look at it from that perspective. So make sure that the audience has a need. Then make sure that you know what that audience is needing, and then build something for them. Once you know who they are, before you even start developing, start getting that audience to actually know that you exist. Now, that's something that a lot of people do after the app is done. They say, we'll push the app to the App Store, we're going to do a Twitter campaign, and we're going to ask all of our friends to like us on Facebook. That's great. That's kind of late. Imagine if you do that when you first started developing this app. So you start developing the app, you start broadcasting that you're making this thing happen, and you started getting, or you're trying to get people to follow you. Whether it's a follow on Twitter, it's a like on Facebook. It's a way for you to broadcast to them later on. So a couple of good things can happen out of it. One, maybe they won't. Maybe it'll be so terrible, the idea. They'll say, I want nothing to do with this. And at that point, you know they don't need it. Why waste 2 months, 6 months, 2 years building this thing that no one needs? Go back to the drawing board, find something else, then do it. The other thing is getting people to like or follow is really, really easy, especially if it's something they need. They will follow you and they will listen to what you have to say. But imagine they didn't know you and you asked them to pay you money. Imagine what the conversion rate would be on that. Kind of small. So instead, you get them to follow you first, listen to you, and then when the app is ready, when you're ready to finally push the button on making it available in the App Store, you can let them know. And guess what happens? They will then buy it. Now, not all of them, obviously. Probably not even most of them. But the few that will are better than the nothing you had before. And hopefully they will spread the word and make sure their friends know about it too. So use tools. When it comes to social media and when it comes to just working with the mass market, most tools are free. It doesn't make any sense not to use them. Cross-post to Instagram from Twitter with Facebook. Make sure you're building an audience in a way that you can easily reach out to it. Whether it's doing a drip campaign, an email campaign, collecting emails to let them know this is coming. This is going to make your life 1,000% better. Don't you want this? I will let you know when it's ready. It's that easy. So that is mostly it for building an audience. Oh, and if you have any questions, just say them. Shout, raise your hand, dance, up to you. People. I left this slide link. Oh, yeah, go for it. You didn't dance though. Check.
So my question is, I mean, I'm kind of feeling that the Apple TV is coming out like maybe the end of this month.
Mhm.
And although it's not as big as the iPhone and the Apple Watch and all like that, and I'm working on the app. I'm working on an app that hopefully will be available. Do you think what people or developers push out on the launch day, they can hike up the price because there are only a limited number of apps on that platform, and people who have the Apple TV, they will be needing to download the app. And later on, they can just say premium.
Yeah. You can definitely do it. I think that would be a terrible mistake. So if you look at the market, this is a good place to segment this to segue. If you look at the market, so there's going to be just a few devices out there. I think it's going to ramp up a lot, but I think it's going to be the holiday season that sees a lot more Apple TVs, where people like us gift it to everyone else in our families who may not be as advanced technologically. So I think you're going to see a lot of devices. You're going to see a good amount of interest from all of those devices, but I don't think that would be a good time to give you the price. I think, if anything, it would be a great time to lower the price. So you get in and you establish yourself as the whatever your app does for the Apple TV. So let's say you have a vegetable app, and you want to be the app for the Apple TV. You lower the price. You get more people to be using it, more people to share stuff from it, and to be talking about it and telling their friends. And we'll talk about perceived risk in a tiny bit. Well, one of the biggest problems, I think, is when I, as a user, see an app and the price is just a little bit too high, I hold off. Now, the more I hold off, the worse it is for you, because a competitor might come along, and probably will come along if it's a hot enough category or area. So I would say instead, try to get as many people to use the app on the Apple TV. And then as more Apple TVs make their way to homes, then you can slowly increase the price or change the monetization based on the data that you will see. I'm not necessarily saying make it free, but I'm saying make it as easy to consume as possible. So I left the slide blank because on the 5 Ps, one of them is people. I can talk about people, but I don't think we need to waste our time talking about customer service. If anyone is interested in customer service, raise your hand. If that's enough people, then I'll do it. All right, cool. Moving on. So promotion. Probably the most anticipated part of this talk, for me at least. And probably the one area where everyone feels like they're not doing enough, and they feel like they could do more if they had more money. And you hear this from a lot of game developers. If we only had a little bit more money for user acquisition, UA, as they call it in the biz, then everything would be fine, and everyone would know about our game. But that's not true. So let me backtrack a little bit. Promotion. What is promotion? If you build it, they won't come. If you tell them about it, they might come. So promotion is all about making sure people know about what you've built and getting found on the App Store, which is kind of like a side benefit of that. So you put your app in front of potential users, and hopefully they'll see it. Now, you give them a way, again, to find you outside of the App Store. So this, again, going back to the Google search, the place. They find you, then what? This is called a funnel. So if you think about a funnel that looks like an upside-down pyramid, you have people looking at your app, then you have people pressing the link to the App Store to see your app, then you have people potentially downloading the app, then people using the app. All these steps, exactly. So what you want to do is you want to optimize so you get as many people looking at the app, and then optimize so you get as many people converting in the app, which we'll talk about in a second. One of the things that I always think about that I see as always being a problem, which I really don't understand, maybe someone can explain to me later, is why won't you in your app description highlight your competitive advantages? I see people spending many paragraphs talking about what they think about the app, what other users are saying about the app, not about the benefits of the app. What is it going to do for me? I don't care about anyone else. I don't have time to read your mountains of descriptions, many, many words. I want to know why I need this. And I want to know now, please. So make a description that actually highlights your competitive advantage. And then user acquisition. So you all know what user acquisition is, right? all seen the banners. You've all seen little pop-ups that say, play this game, please, or this game is amazing. Really what it is it's one developer paying another developer through a network to get users, to get eyeballs on the app. So add to that top of the funnel to get more people to see the app so they could potentially convert. There are many, many different ways of doing it. Some incentivized, and say if you download the app now, you'll get 100 coins. I don't know what that means, but it doesn't really matter because you feel like you're getting something. Something is always better than nothing, right? And that's expensive because there are networks in the middle that make money, lots and lots of money from that. So for indie developers, it's rarely an option. And there's some services that try to augment and make that better, make that easier, but I still don't think that that's the way to go about it. Negative ROIs are making it really difficult to actually make any money with user acquisition, but it doesn't mean that it's impossible. You developed your audience before using those likes and follows. You collected some email addresses from people who are really needing your app and looking for it, and boom, you acquired users. All you have to do is just let them know now. So you see how they all come together to really build this audience that you can leverage later on and then use and make money from. And the best and most important thing, the way I see it, is optimize, test, and analyze. So again, going back to that same sort of mindset that we had with pricing, if you track what's going on and you see patterns, you'll know what people need, not want. So if you see that one area of your app is being really heavily used and all the others are not, give it more love. Make it amazing. Make it more than amazing. Give them exactly what they want and what they can even think they want because you know that's what they're coming in for. Don't spend time adding to all the features. Don't spend time adding features they don't need. Testing and analyzing is, again, very similar. So try new things and see how people interact with them. Google Analytics is really easy to work with. Flurry, I would not recommend Flurry because it's really slow. But all these tools are completely free and require very little engagement and very little know-how to get started. They can become very complicated, but you don't have to invest all that time. And something we're doing is we're actually integrating Google Analytics so we can simplify that even more and put everything in the same place. Now, I said optimization, I said optimize, and I'm pretty sure some of you heard the term ASO. Yeah, what's up?
Sorry, could you, you mentioned that highlighting your competitive advantage is crucial. Could you give an example of how you might phrase something like that?
Oh, absolutely. So step number one is put yourself in the user's shoes and think about what they need. And I don't have a specific example. I guess after this I can show you some examples, like some stuff that we've done. But if you think about what they need and you put that at the beginning, you open with that. And then you list the benefits that come from the app, not the features, not the buttons that I can press, but what those buttons give to me. That makes for a great description, in my opinion. And when you optimize for the App Store, you'll see that that actually gets you a lot more conversion, which is something we can see now with iTunes Analytics, actually. So going back to what I was starting to say, optimize, you've heard of ASO, or App Store Optimization, right? No. Wow, okay, perfect. App Store Optimization, ASO, is a very misused term, in my opinion. And it's been talked about a lot. If you go to any marketing blog, and those do feel very douchey. I'm sorry, but that's just how it is. You don't have to go to them if you don't like them. Not my advice. But what they talk about is they talk about how to mess around with keywords in your app and shove them into your title and into your description in order for you to be found in search results. And sometimes it actually works, but it's a micro-optimization for most apps. And I put most apps because most apps want to have a brand that's very clean and very direct. You don't want to have an app that has the name Perfect Calculator dash best calculator ever to calculate numbers with a calculator on the iPad, iPhone, and on and on. So to me, that was never really an option. And if you look at the additional benefit that you get from those search results, it's really tiny and really minimal in most cases. I like to think about App Store optimization as reducing perceived risk. Yeah. So reducing perceived risk, to me, is about giving the user a feeling that they not only need the app, that they come home with that, but the feeling that they've come to the right place. And my app is what will answer their needs. So, what is perceived risk? Perceived risk to me is a measure of how likely a user is to download the app once they see it when compared to other apps. So not in a silo, not if it's the only app in the App Store that does what they need, but if there's competition. If there's someone else who's trying to accomplish exactly the same thing, it may have the same benefits. Actually, I'll rephrase that. It may have the same features. So what can you do to reduce perceived risk? And this is a very bare list, raw list of things that I put together. And if anyone was curious about this, I can talk to them in great lengths after this. But how do you stand out? And when you search for anything on the App Store, you get a ton of results. We know that most users are not going to look through all of them. They're going to look through the first few, maybe 2, maybe 10, depending on the type of app they're looking for. So what do you do to stand out? What do you do to be the app they actually take? The app they click on or tap on in order to see more details, and then the app they end up downloading. So a few cool things. App previews. If you have a video for your app, you're making it 1,000 times easier to see what's inside the app. So what you're doing is you're removing the blindfolds that you get from looking at the App Store. And I've gone through the App Store many, many times looking for things, and I see their description, and I see their icon, and I see their screenshots, and I'm not entirely getting it. I'm not entirely feeling like I understand what would happen once I download it, or how it solves my problem. And videos do a much better job of that, especially at 30 seconds. 30 seconds is a lot of seconds, even though it doesn't sound like it. So that's one thing. And then going back to, again, the competitive advantage. So it's really easy to highlight your features. You have all these buttons, and they do all these things, and they do it fast and efficiently. Great. What do I get out of it? How do those buttons, again, tie into my need? And that's something you have to think about and always put at the forefront of everything you do. Going back to the description. Is the description quick and easy to read? Does it take me forever to go through it? Is it 17, this is awesome, says someone I don't know. 4 stars from a blog I never read. I don't care about these things. I want something that's very easy for me to consume, very easy for me to understand why I should use this, given my need. And then, is your price prohibitive? And I put initially prohibitive because after I use an app, I might be more inclined to give it more money, or give it money in general. And I think one of the biggest problems of the App Store is that we can't do demos. If we could have a trial app, which is something Google Play does and Amazon does, but Apple has not allowed yet, and I don't know if they'll allow it. And that is a problem, but given that, how do you restructure your app around that sort of mindset if you know your user base is the kind of user base that is probably not likely to pay you up front, but then you know that once you hook them, that's it, they're yours, and you can probably take 10 times more than you would with a paid app. Build your app around a free model that gives them just enough, just a whiff, just tease them enough. And now that may not work for all apps, but there's always something that will work for your app. And you have to spend some time and give it thought before you even build it and as you build it. So those are the 5 Ps, but I have a 6 P. This is a P I invented. And it didn't really fit what I wanted to write. So preservation, how do you preserve what you've built? You spend so much time building an audience, thinking about pricing, making all these things work together so you can make more money. But in some, and it's essential for growth. If you have 100 new users and only one of them stays, you're not going to be able to use that 99 user base again to leverage either your new app or an update or something else you might be putting out. In some situations, so if your app is ad-based, if your app utilizes in-app purchases, if they leave, you get less money. So you really want to keep them around. So it's really called retention. I think preservation is a good way to use a P with the same word. Hopefully it's going to fly by and no one's going to care. But think about this in a different way. So think about yourself as a user. And what are you most annoyed about with apps? I'm most annoyed about apps not listening to what I have to say. I take the time and I give them feedback and I get nothing. I get no customer service. What else did I put on there? I try to reach out to them, and I don't know if they answered, if they saw. So I started using Ghost for my blog, and they don't have an app. Ghost is like WordPress, but it's minified. It's nice, written in JavaScript. And there's a third-party app that is really cool. But I found this really silly bug that only happens in, I think, my only use case. I'm the only use case. And I decided to let the developer know about this. And from his blog, it seemed he was pretty open. I said, well, he's probably going to respond and say thank you and never fix it. He never even responded. And you know what ended up happening? The app stopped working. I didn't bother telling him anymore, and I just deleted the app. So he lost me, and when he puts out a new app, there's no way I'm going to download it again. So he just lost me as a customer. And he can work very hard to convince me to come back. But that's going to be even harder than doing all of this. So why? You can listen by reading App Store reviews. It's actually it's a lot easier than it is with iTunes with our app, for example. You can respond to emails when people email you. It's so important. And if you can't respond to all of them, maybe hire someone else to do it. There's so many clever solutions to responding to emails. Not immediately, maybe, but within enough time that I don't feel like I'm being disrespected after I gave you, $3.99 of my hard-earned money. Use social media. Who doesn't use Twitter? Who doesn't use Facebook? And even if you don't, try it. It's super easy. And all you do with that is you're showing your user base that you care about them, and they will come back for more. And then when you mess up, you push out an update, you push out a bug, they're not going to hate you. They're going to understand that they can communicate that with you. So that is more important, in my opinion, than many other aspects. And then look at usage data. Data is obviously very important because it's been on every one of my slides almost. But look at usage data, again, using Google Analytics, using iTunes, using App Reviews, using any platform that you have access to. Because once you start seeing patterns, it's really easy to see what you're doing wrong, but you have to look. We're actually doing a blog post with one of our members who said that they pushed out a new update, and I forgot exactly what they did, but they did something that no one liked. And they didn't listen to it, they didn't care about reviews. And their ratings started dropping, revenue started dropping, and they had no idea why. So one of the guys that's running the show came up with this great, brave idea. Let's read some App Store reviews and see what's happening. And the problem was right there. It was outlined. Most users said exactly the same thing. They fixed it, and revenue was going up again. And he will share graphs, which I thought was really cool. It's so easy. And you think to yourself, well, everyone must do this. But no, most people don't, especially at the indie level. So these are the 6 Ps, as I outlined them. This is most of my talk. So the gist. To succeed, it's more than just the app. Build a great app, build a great business, then you will succeed. What's next? Marketing doesn't have to be sleazy. It really, really doesn't. And I hope everyone here understand that in order to run a business, you have to think like a businessman. You don't have to be sleazy and think like a dirty salesman. Revenue is not a dirty word. And really, really think about how revenue builds into your app and make it inform your decision, your design, as opposed to saying, oh, we'll just think about it later. Because later is going to be very difficult to change. And it may not require changes, but it will require changes. It may require changes. One price doesn't fit all. Very straightforward. So think about that as you start. And ask people, ask your friends, ask people who have no technical experience. Ask your parents, ask random strangers if they will buy this app for this much money. And usually they will give you a real answer because to them, it's not a question of how do you monetize me. It's a question of how do you give me something I need or how do I get something I need. If you build it, they won't come, but if you tell them, they might. So keep all that good stuff that we talked about in promotion, building an audience and leveraging that again. And then listen, adjust, and amplify every good thing that you can. And have fun. If you're dreading thinking about pricing, if you're dreading thinking about how to promote your app, it's probably not going to be done right. It's going to be really terrible. Either find someone else who can do it, or just train yourself to think about it that way. It doesn't have to be hard unless you want to make it hard. And that's it. Questions and discussion.
So I can just comment, I did a very similar session a couple of years ago, lessons to learn from 5 years of answer. For the pricing, I've always found the narrower the niche, the higher the price.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm selling professional gardening people, they don't really care that much about the price. So I started with like 99 cents and now it's like $3.99 for the same number of downloads.
Yeah, because you weren't afraid to experiment.
Yeah, and the customer service, I think it's like 95% of the reviews are positive because of the customer service that I provide. So I answer like at least like in like an hour or 2
think you're validating everything I just said.
Yes.
I didn't catch the last word of this sentence. Would not recommend Flurry because.
I will tell you after off the stage.
All right.
Anyone else? Questions?
What do you think about subscription models versus, price?
You know, so I really like the idea of subscriptions myself, and I think that's a really sustainable way to run a business. Sometimes they don't fit. So I've seen, ever since Apple started making it very easy to create subscriptions, so I've seen a lot of weird apps using subscriptions in ways that I never thought were possible. One good example is fitness apps. You download a fitness app and it's free, but if you want to get the good set of exercises, it's like $50 a year. And that always seemed very iffy to me. And I actually paid once, and it didn't give me anything great. And I felt like that was just a little bit too much, too excessive. But if you have the right need for it, if it's anything that's renewable, if it's anything that new content is coming or something new is entering the mix every month, every 2 months, I think it's beautiful. More questions, discussions, dancing?
One thing, and this might not be related, but one thing I've seen, and it's a problem with the Apple Store itself, is the reviews. Although my app has like 50, 60 reviews, I haven't updated the app for like a very long time because of this issue. But if I update the app, and I'll lose all the reviews. And it goes to all reviews instead of the current reviews.
Mm-hmm.
And I've gotten even from people who are angry who say, "Oh, I'm not never going to buy this app which doesn't ever get reviews." And I'm like, what are you talking about? It's like 60 positive reviews.
Yeah.
Because they never touched that all reviews thing. I've never been able to figure out how to, or is there a way to solve that problem? Because it's kind of like Apple Store.
There is no way to solve that problem, but I know the only way is to try and get users to understand why giving you a review is a great idea, or why is it going to help them in the long run. Help you, obviously, but help them, again, me versus one. And we're in the same boat with the Afteruse app. So we have, I don't know how many, but less than 100 5-star reviews. And I think we have 2 like 1-star reviews. Some people were confused. So we have a 5-star rating. And I know that the minute we ship a new update, which is coming out very soon, we're going to lose all that. And I don't want to think about that at all. But really what it is it's going to go away, and that's what it is. If we can find a way to get users sentiment that by giving us a review, they're really helping us, and put it in the top of their mind without being disruptive, I think that's the only like hacky solution for that. And there's a bunch of ways to do it instead of just popping the "Can you leave us a review?" But there are many clever ways to do it, and one of them could work.
Do you offer a virtual currency for a good review?
No, I would never do that. Yeah, but I also wouldn't do that in general, because what are you getting from that? You're really getting fake reviews, and they're going to sound fake, and they're going to look fake, and they're going to feel fake. And I'm sure there's a way to get around the guidelines if you really want to do that.
Do you find that asking just for a review
Works.
do you actually work?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. 10 times out of 10 when you ask, and you don't do it in a pushy way, you will get a review.
Like after a couple of uses?
Yeah, it depends on the app.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's the patterns themselves are really app specific. But there's some who will pop up a little box that says, "Hey, we worked very hard to make this app. Do you like it? Do you hate it?" And if it says you hate it, then they pop up a little email form. Please tell us why. And if not, they take you to the App Store. There's some that wait a certain amount of uses, and then at the end, just when you're done with something that was really meaningful, they ask you, "Can you please tell everyone how much you like it?" Find that sweet spot. Exactly. And that takes experimentation too. I don't know of any service that will allow you to do that, like experiment on the fly. So everyone's going to be an update, but I'm sure there's a homebrew solution for this somewhere. Cool. No? We're good, I think. Oh, actually, wait. So, if you want to hit it.